What? Oh, we're filming? We're filming now? Oh, hey! How's it going there? My name is Matt High. I'm from Brigham Young University. And what we'll be walking you through today is the environmental sampling process, or the flotation process that goes on with the dig. As we're digging out there, what we'll do is we'll take buckets, these large white buckets full of soil samples, and we'll put them inside of this float tank. Now, contrary to what it looks like, I'm not just playing in the mud, although it is kind of fun. We'll put the mud in here, and we have a current of water that's running through this upper tank. And as we massage the dirt in here, little bits of organic particles will float up to the top. They'll come over this ridge and down into these series of sieves. The sieves will catch the material, or the organic materials that are coming up, and the water just comes down to the bottom. Also, other little tiny dirt particles, and that'll be sieved, or that'll be just settled down to the bottom of these tanks. And the water goes down there, and then it cycles back up here to repeat the process. Once this sample is sufficiently gritty, once we've gotten a lot of the dirt out of it and a lot of the organic material, we'll shut this off, and then these two sieves will be separate, or these two meshes will be separated. The one that's in here that will contain all the rocks and the gritty material, that'll be put out to dry on a large flat pallet, and then this stuff down here will be set out to dry, and that'll be examined later on. So after we're finished with the flotation tank over there, the gritty samples and the rocks are all laid out here on these flat pallets to dry. After that, or once they're dry, we come through and just make sure that it's all looking good. And then we take one of these pallets up, and we go over to the table. And on each of these samples, we have a little tag that tells us the sample, or the context number. Again, that's the soil where the sample came from. And then it has a sample number, so that we know exactly where it came from on the plans that we've made. And then it tells us how many samples were taken from that area. So we put that aside because that'll be very important later. And then we just shuffle everything down to one end, and we take a giant metal sieve like this. Kind of like the more delicate ones we use over in the flotation tank, but these are a lot more durable. And so from these, we just plop down a bunch of rocks and slowly sieve through. Another thing that we'll do is we'll take this giant magnet that's inside this bag, and we'll go over the fine sand, whatever has gone through the sieve. And we pull it out, and we see all these little bits of magnetic material right there. These are all bits of slag, things that have just come off of the larger chunks, but it's also tiny bits of hammer scale. Hammer scale is what happens when you strike a piece of metal with a hammer in the forging process, and the little flakes of metal just break off. That's hammer scale, and we find little bits of that happening in the area because this is, the part of the forge was being used for smithing of some sort.
So essentially I've sorted out all the big rocks and all the large finds. So now I'm just using this to scatter out the sand so that I can have a look for anything smaller but that might be significant. So beads, largish chunks of bone or slag or ceramic building material or pot which slips through there. After this, then I'll go over with a magnet and find all the magnetic material.
Hi, I'm Elise from the Australian National University. Currently we're standing right next to the guardhouse. In the guardhouse we do something a little bit special. We 100% sample everything. Usually across the rest of the site you would cap at about 4 buckets, so about 80 litres. But we are doing absolutely everything, as you can see behind me. The reason for this is a bit different, so we're actually sampling everything in the guardhouse very precisely because we want to know exactly how they're using the space. And it's really cool because one of our samples actually brought up some domesticated oats, which is awesome because oats weren't domesticated during the Roman period. So it shows that the space was being continuously reused post-Roman and in the early medieval periods.